Hi friends, how are you today? Today I'm going to make some bone broth out of chicken feet. So when we process the chickens, we save the chicken feet and we're going to make some bone broth out of them today. And they're kind of, in some parts of the country they call them chicken paws. I just call them chicken feet. My daughter came home from Oklahoma. She's like, yeah, chicken paws. I was like, oh, you mean chicken feet? Is that what they call them? That was kind of funny, but because we don't call them paws, we just call them feet. But whatever you have, we're gonna make some bone broth today. So I've got them in this roasting pan. The roasting pan I use for all kinds of things. Old style roasting pan like Granny used to use to cook the turkeys in for Thanksgiving. So I've got quite a few in here, as you can see. And we're gonna kind of look down here so you can see them. There we go. And these guys are mostly cleaned up when we do them, but sometimes that skin gets left on, and so we're just gonna, they were frozen in the freezer for the last couple months, so I'm gonna pull some of those off, and you can see how the nail comes off and everything. So really what's left is very clean because you're actually taking off all of that outer skin, and most of that comes out when we process the chickens, but sometimes there's a few pieces left that I miss in the cleanup when I'm saving them. So these look pretty darn good because I tried to get all that done. Here's a feather. So, and you're gonna strain your bone broth, so, and you're cooking it a long time, so you don't have to worry too much. Of course you want to be sure anything gross, you want them washed, and these have been washed already, but it seems like you always miss a couple little feathers when you're processing, or maybe a toenail won't come off very easily. So there we go. Which I know it seems kind of gross, but this is going to make absolutely the best bone broth because these feet are so filled with collagen, and it's so good for your skin. It's good for your gut. And it's also just nice to put into soups. And I just like to, even making rice, I'll make rice with bone broth instead of water. And you could cook pastas, anything. So we're just gonna clean these up a tiny bit more. They're still, the ones on the bottom are still frozen. I just threw these in here last night, frozen, to thaw out, and they've done pretty good. But just a little bit of cleanup here. And I've got one more package to throw in there. You can tell they are different kinds of chickens. These are smaller chickens. These are Cornish cross. They're very big compared to those little guys, compared to these big guys. These were just regular roosters that we saved for stewing. So I'm going to throw this in here, and surprisingly I probably could have actually got more in this pan, but I didn't bring them up from the freezer, so we're just going to go with this size of batch. And I have 3 more of these containers to work through, I should say, for the season of getting all of the stuff cleaned up from processing chickens. So we're just going to fill this up to the top of the chicken feet. And I'm probably going to add a little bit more water. Let me grab some more. Okay, so this is probably about, I'm guessing about 6 pounds of chicken feet. And we want to just cover those up. So that's about 7 quarts of water in the roaster. Now I'm going to add salt, a fair amount of salt, black pepper, and I like to add, I have freeze-dried celery and freeze-dried onion that I like to just add on top. And then I'm just going to turn this on about 300. I'm going to add a little bit of vinegar to it to help the collagen break down out of the chicken feet and come to the water. rather than stuck in the feet. It's just gonna help break it down. And so I'm gonna add a little bit of the vinegar, salt, pepper, onion, if you like it, celery, just to give it a little more flavor if you like it. And that's it. That's all there is to it. And we're just gonna let this cook, and then we'll come back later and I'll show you what this is looking like as it's cooking. See you in a while. So I'll show you what it's gonna look like when I'm adding the freeze-dried ingredients as well. Here's the celery that's just freeze-dried celery that I have had. You can add fresh celery. I just freeze-dried this out of the garden, and it's last year's, and I would just want to get it used up. So I like to put them in my bone broths. Found my container of freeze-dried onion. I had to dig. I'm in the pantry doing this today. That's just where I keep my roaster pan. But there's so much stuff packed in here. So freeze-dried onion. And I'm not rehydrating any of this stuff because it's just gonna sit in here and simmer and steam. So I don't need to worry about that as far as freeze-dried foods go. I'm gonna scoop out some sea salt from this jar, a good hefty tablespoon. Actually, we're gonna go 2 tablespoons. And rather than just ground black pepper, I'm gonna throw in peppercorns. So I've got some, I hate to use my pretty ones, but I have some tricolor peppercorns here. And we're gonna use a couple tablespoons of those. And honestly, I'm just gonna kind of squish it all down. I'm going to find some vinegar. This one is a coconut vinegar. Still smells like vinegar. I haven't used the coconut before. I'm going to try it. A 1/4 cup is about all you need in there. I'm going to turn this on to about 300, and we're just going to let it sit there. So we'll be back later. Hi friends, we're back with our chilled chicken bone broth, and I want to show you the next step of that. So on top you'll see this layer right here, and that is all chicken fat, and we're going to take that off because we don't want that in our bone broth when we can it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in a Ziploc bag and put it in the freezer to use next time I want to cook, maybe get a soup started or something like that, and I need some extra fat for something, because this is really nutritious and I don't want to waste it. So I'm going to just go ahead and put it in the bag and put it in the freezer when I pull it out. And it's just kind of gooey, and it's just chicken fat. I probably should have used maybe a bowl or something, but we're just gonna stick it in the bag. All my bowls end up in the freezer and they're all gone. I honestly expected that to be a little thicker. I'll probably end up putting that in like maybe a jam jar and putting it in the freezer. But there's a fair amount there. And then I'll do something, you know, saute your vegetables for your soup or whatever. I do also want to show you how thick this actually is. And you can see there's no movement there. This is like a really gelatinous bone broth, and probably so I'm gonna heat it back up now to get it canned, and probably because it is so thick, I'll probably add a little bit of water to it because it really doesn't need to be that strong. Very gelatinous, and that's from those chicken feet. They're just full of collagen, and so that is all collagen in the bone broth, making it that thick. It's crazy. So I'm gonna get that in a pan, get it heating up on the stove, and then I'll can it. It's crazy how much collagen is in this from those chicken feet. It's gonna be so healthy. And this is just great for like skin and nails, hair. There we go. Let's see if it comes out now. Wow, there it is. Woohoo! That kind of made a mess. Kind of went everywhere. I'm just gonna break it up a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna turn that on. It got all over the place. I'm gonna turn that on, let it start heating up, and when it's back to liquid and hot, I'll go ahead and get the canner ready and jars ready, and this is about 6 quarts of bone broth. It's crazy how fast that melts down, but it's super fast. It's only been like maybe 5 minutes.
So when I'm filling up the jars here, I am really bad about preheating my jars when I'm doing bone broth. So typically I use the funnel and I put a scoop of liquid, hot liquid, in each jar. And that hot liquid in each jar, the small amount, usually will not, I've never had it shock a jar into breaking. And it heats up the jar enough that then you can go back and start filling that first jar. So it gives it a few minutes to warm up the glass so you're not going to break it. And it's a way to not have to warm up your jars. Probably not the best way, but it works. And here it is all done. A batch of beef and a batch of chicken bone broth to go on the canning shelf.